Hello YouTube, this is Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review. Now for this one I decided that I wanted to revisit the Mikkeller Brewery in Denmark today. So I have for you 20, which is part of the Single Hop IPA Series, which was released during the summer. Now I've already done a video review of one of the Mikkeller beers. This one was the Beer Geek Bacon, so I'll put that video review, the link to that one, in the description box for you, so check that out if you're interested. If you are particularly interested in the reviews of Mikkeller beers, I've got a number of these sitting aside, so there will be more of these added over the coming weeks and months, so please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already and you'll catch these. As is usual with my video reviews, I'll just take you through a bit of a history of the Mikkeller Brewery. I've modified this since my last video a little bit, so there is some new content in there, and I'll also tell you a little bit of history about the IPA, the Single Hop IPA series that they've produced. It has a little bit of an interesting history behind it as well. Now, but if you are simply just interested in the tasting of this beer, then obviously feel free just to fast forward towards the second half of the video and you'll catch that particular segment. But anyway, Mikkeller are a microbrewery, or a gypsy brewery as they're sometimes known, founded by home brewers Christian Claurup Keller and Mikkel Borg Bjergso, and they're based in Copenhagen in Denmark. For those of you wondering what a gypsy brewery is, it's basically a very small scale brewing platform, and they often make beer with a variety of random flavours and ingredients, and they tend to make use of unused capacity in larger breweries. They don't tend to have their own particular brewing facility. But Mikkel Bjergso, one of the founders as I mentioned earlier, he's apparently travelled the world since the inception of this particular brewery and has brewed 200 different types of beer. But his first exposure to foreign beer was a job that he had in a cafe while he was studying to become a teacher. I believe he taught maths and physics for a number of years. But when he was qualified as a teacher, he used to stop at a pub on his way home for a beer, and he tried the IPA from the Danish brewery Brockhouse, and it was at this particular point that he realised he would save himself a hell of a lot of money if he actually brewed his own beer. Now, Mikkel, along with his friend Christian, drew some inspiration from American brewing books that they found, and they actually started brewing in their kitchens at home, and they presented one of their clone beers that they produced to their beer club, and it actually won a blind tasting event that they held, and this actually got the pair hooked on the idea of brewing their own beer. Now, their kitchen experiments lasted a total of 2.5 years before they actually began to brew on a larger scale at the Danish microbrewery Orbeck. Now, Mikkel's brother Jeppe actually opened up a beer shop in Copenhagen in 2005, and he began to distribute the very early Mikkeller beers. But the big breakthrough for the company on the international front arose when they had the idea of adding French press coffee to an oatmeal stout, and the resulting beer was called the Beer Geek Breakfast, and this was voted the #1 stout on the international beer forum ratebeer.com. You'll probably have heard of that if you're a bit of a beer geek. But this really kick-started Mikkeller's international reputation, and it allowed them to start their exporting. But after they attended the Danish Beer Festival in 2006, the brewery were courted by an American distribution company called Shelton Brothers, and this has really substantially increased their export market both worldwide and in the United States, and it's obviously aided the company a lot in their growth. Now, Christian Keller, despite all the success of the company that it was going through at this particular time, he parted ways with the company in 2007 because he didn't want to produce more than a handful of beers, whereas obviously Mikkel is very interested in a lot of the experimental side and producing a lot of different and interesting things. But he actually went on to take up a career as the editor of Danish music magazine Sound Venue. But as I mentioned earlier, the brewery doesn't have its own brewing facility, so obviously you can't go and visit it and have tours, etc. But they brew at a variety of host facilities in different countries, including Denmark, Norway, the United Kingdom, the USA. But most of their beer, I understand, is brewed at the De Proef Brewery in Belgium. So a lot of their beer is actually coming from Belgium rather than Denmark. But their home base as such is actually the Mikkeller Bar in Copenhagen, but they have a second bar in Copenhagen called Mikkeller and Friends, and this is a cooperation with the To Øl Brewery, who is actually owned by 2 of Mikkel's former students. But they also very recently opened up a bar in San Francisco, which is their first location out with Denmark, and I believe they're actually looking at expanding their bar scenes as well. But today Mikkeller apparently export to over 40 different countries, and they've brewed over 600 different varieties of beer, and this will obviously encompass a massive array of flavours and ingredients, as I mentioned earlier the gypsy brewing is famous for. But it's said that the brewery drew their inspiration from the American craft brewing industry and their whole experimental approach to beer, but they say the aim of the company is to make beer an alternative to champagne and things like that for drinking with gourmet food. So they have a really cool vision, this company. They really just want to experiment and produce good beer, which is obviously what you want from craft brewing. But the company apparently also collaborates with several breweries such as Brewdog, Nonya and Norway, 3 Floyds in the United States, and obviously Totul, who I said earlier, Mikkel's students own that particular brewery. But Mikkel's brother Jeppe that I mentioned earlier, who owned the beer shop in Copenhagen that distributed their very early beers, he's actually involved with the Evil Twin Brewery, who are also really good. I have one of their beers here, but I'm having a bit of trouble finding the history of the brewery, so it maybe be a bit of a while before I review that for you. But anyway, to get on to this particular series of beer, the Single Hop IPA Series, this one is part of the Single Hop IPA Series, and this was introduced in this summer, which is 2013 for those of you watching a little bit down the line from this video being uploaded. Now this particular IPA series, the first Single Hop IPA series, was produced as part of a PhD project that composed 20 beers, and the aim of this PhD study was to uncover how the different hops evolve over time and how they taste when you measure them in terms of their bitterness. Now each different beer has the same amount of a different type of hop added to it, and this allows the drinker to basically taste the different hop varieties in an IPA form. Now the IBUs of these beers vary from 38 to 114 depending on the particular hop that's used in the brewing process, and the labels for each of these beers actually have a sort of a segmented tree bark pattern on them, and they all have the different colours, and this particular label on this beer has each of the 20 different colours. There was 20 different hops used in these ones, and the second single hop series that they produced composed 15 beers, all with an IBU of 100, and this was purely intended just for those who really like hoppy beers basically. But the hops that have been used in these beers, I went through, I put into the list on Beer Advocate and had a little look for all the different hop beers that you could get, but the hops that are used in this particular series are Amarillo, Belmat, Cascade, Centennial, Challenger, Chinook, Citra, Cluster, Columbus, Galena, Magnus, Mandarina, Mount Hood, Palisade, Sats, Simcoe, Super Galena, Titnager, Tomahawk, Warrior and Williamette. When I counted those, there was 21 there, so I'm not sure why I've actually got 21 rather than 20, but this particular beer contains a small portion, different percentages of all 20 hops that were used in making the first Single Hop IPA series. I actually really want to get a hold of those different beers and make video reviews about the different hops themselves. So if someone knows about where I can actually get a crate with all of these beers in it, please let me know in the comments section of the video. But let's just get on to the tasting of this beer then. That's all I really had to say about the particular series, but as you can see, as I mentioned, if you look at the label here, I'll bring the camera up again, this particular beer has all the 20 different colours that you would expect on the labels for each of the different hops that are used in the Single Hop IPA series, so it's really cool that way. As is usual with the Mikkeller Brewery, it's just a plain bottle cap, this time a blue one. But this is a really cool looking beer, I have to say. A lot of condensation on this one out here just from since I've taken it out of the fridge. It must have been really cold. But without further ado, let's get on to the tasting of this beer. I'm really looking forward to this one actually. So I've been waiting a little while to review this one, but this is a 6.8% IPA. Apparently this one is brewed at the De Proef Brewery in Belgium, which is in Locriste Gifte. And this one is only brewed once, so if you see this, I would advise that you give it a try, just buy it up and give it a try. Apparently these are very good. I've heard very good things about this particular brewery. So let's just get this guy open and get on with the tasting. There we are. A lot of steam coming off this one already, as you can probably see. Let's just get this guy out and get him poured. It looks like it's going to be a really beautiful kind of golden colour, this one. Been looking forward to trying this for a long time, as I've said. I'll just swirl this up. It's got a hell of a lot of head on it, I have to say. See if I can just get the last of this out. I'll just leave it at that just now. There's a little bit left. Hopefully that head will go down. But as you can see, it's a really nice sort of dark reddish amber colour there. It looks really nice. Massive head on this one, about 3 fingers or so. Maybe I opened it a little weird or something and that's why it's so big. There's not so much in the way of carbonation visible in this one. There are some little streams of bubbles in there. So quite looking forward to giving this one a go. In terms of the aroma, I was expecting this one to be really hoppy, but the main smell I'm getting off of that actually, there's a big backbone of sort of honey and caramel notes and some sort of sweet biscuity malts, I would say. But this is, yeah, this I'm mainly getting the caramel and kind of honey notes off of this one. It's really, I was expecting something a bit more hoppy and or fruity or something, but there is a good element of fruits to it. There's a hell of a complex aroma on this one, really. But a lot of fruitiness. There is a lot of fruitiness in it as well, obviously from the different types of hops that are being used. I'm getting some kind of orangey citrus smells as well. There's some grapefruit, but there's some sort of piney and resiny notes as well. This head's just starting to go. I'll just chuck the rest of the beer in there while it's going down. But yeah, this one's got a really kind of complex aroma to it. Yeah, I'm smelling a lot of caramel and kind of honey. You have the sort of piney element to it as well, but there's a lot of fruitiness in there, orangey citrus and grapefruit. It's a really attractive smell. I could sit and smell this one all day, but without further ado, let's give it a taste. I've been waiting for this a long time, obviously. Oh yeah, the first thing that comes to this one is the biscuity malts. This is a really sort of rich flavoured beer. It's mainly the biscuity malts with the sort of caramel and honey supporting it that are coming up first. But it's got some really complex kind of fruity flavours to it, this one. As the aroma kind of let you, I'm getting some kind of oranges and lemons and a lot of tropical fruits in this one, I would say. But there's a good bit of kind of floral and grassy character to it a little bit. It's actually kind of quite fruity and bitter on the finish, this one. It's a really nice beer. I'm very impressed with this. Yeah, really interested. The first, like I said with the aroma, the first thing that comes up is the kind of biscuity malts, and you have the caramel and the honey elements supporting that. Then the fruit comes in just after it. There's some citrusy elements to it, kind of getting the orange and a little bit of maybe grapefruit, tropical fruit. I'm not quite sure, but it's very hoppy, this beer. It's got quite a bitter finish to it, I would say. Very fruity and very bitter on the finish. In terms of the mouthfeel, you're getting the carbonation on this one quite early as soon as you take it in. This one's quite drinkable despite being so hoppy and so bitter, actually. It's I would say it's maybe a sort of medium bodied beer. Like I say, very kind of, it's got a very bitter taste to it, just obviously because it's absolutely loaded with hops. But some really nice caramelly malts, fruity flavours in this one. Overall, I'm surprised that a beer that's so focused on the hops has that good bit of caramel backbone to it. I would have expected it to be very bitter, which it actually is, but the caramel and honey elements are quite good at balancing out the flavour a bit. It's got a very complex flavour, and it's a really, I would say overall, this is a really interesting one to try, and definitely buy it if you get the chance. This is a one-off brew, so you're not going to see this you're not going to see this at any particular time anytime soon, but definitely if you do happen to be lucky enough to see one of these, buy it up and give it a try. You won't regret it. This is a really interesting beer. It's quite, as I say, very bitter and unusual to have that sort of it's very unusual to have that sort of caramel and honey element supporting the very complex fruitiness that you get from having all these different hops in there. But I hope you found this beer review sort of informative and I haven't been rambling away and stuff. Now there will be, as I mentioned earlier, there will be a lot more Mikkeller beer reviews coming up, so if you've enjoyed this one, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'll add beer reviews every day, obviously. But thanks for watching again. Please, as usual, subscribe, share with your beer circle, share all the videos, everything like that. Let me know your own thoughts on this particular one in the comments section. I look forward to reading some comments from you on this beer. But thanks again for watching. You've been watching Goddard Radio Moscow Beer Reviews, and I shall catch you soon. Cheers.